Here we are. Hi, Siobhan. I finished your book last night.
Awesome.
I loved it.
Thank you.
We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it.
We will.
Most definitely
Yeah.
talk about it. Well, thank you all for joining us for this bright, sunny Sunday. We're talking a little bit about the weather. It's a little bit cold, but we're cozy and warm inside for this special healing service. And of course, if you get the emails and Instagram posts and whatnot, you will know that it is a very special healing service today. We are joined by a guest minister, Siobhan Byrne, or Siobhan Claire, in her professional venues or spiritual venues. And we're just so fortunate to have Siobhan join us. She'll be guiding us through brief guided meditation, but then talking about her new book, which just has been released. And you can get it on Amazon, and it's called Witch, but it is representative of women in total consciousness healing. And so that's what the Witch stands for. And so I have yet to read the book myself. I just got this week. And as I promised Siobhan, I got 2 copies. One's for Mom and one's for me.
I bought 3 copies, and it's a great book. I finished it last night.
Awesome.
But I'm most definitely going to sink my teeth in. But you're going to most definitely hear a portion of that today. I feel like Siobhan has been a great facilitator of an immense amount of healing for the Open Doorway community, and we thank her for her friendship. And of course, she's a wonderful psychic medium and intuitive consultant. She's a writer. She's an entrepreneur, a former Olympic athlete.
You forgot
the sky's the limit.
gorgeous.
Yeah.
You forgot gorgeous.
And just also all around nice person. So we're just very blessed to have her today. And I wanted to make that introduction before we commence with our invocation. So, hey, Mom.
Thank you,
Mom,
Karen.
don't get her book. I got you one for Mother's Day. All right, so let's close our eyes and let's all take a deep breath in as we enter this space of healing and knowledge and wisdom. Let's focus on that consciousness healing, that word. We have to be conscious in our healing these days. It's always very troubling and difficult when we are picked up by the swell and the strong current of life and the events that occur around us and in our lives. But we can choose to be conscious of our healing, to embrace our healing, and to replenish our energy and our vibrations. So we ask, Divine Parent, grant us open minds and open hearts as we receive knowledge and wisdom and healing. Let that healing and wisdom be instilled in our hearts and minds as we bring the healing light to others. Amen.
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 All right. I just ask anybody that's joining us, just mute your microphones for us so that we can hear all of what Siobhan has to say. And of course, as I continue reading the spiritual principles. So I'm going to share my screen. And the spiritual principles that most of you can imagine are familiar with, but these are a very different variation to those that are new to the Open Doorway. These were written, adapted from the original 7 or 9 principles that you usually will find in a spiritualist community. These were written by our original pastor. I like to say our OG pastor, Reverend Paul, wrote these out in layman's terms so that we can better grasp them. So I'd ask any microphones just to be muted if possible, and just read along with me, and I will go slow and steady so you can do so. We subscribe to the following principles. Number 1, infinite intelligence, the deity, the designing and creating energy for everything in the universe. Number 2, one universe, many dimensions. From one source came all that is present in our world, our galaxy, and beyond. Number 3, the immortal soul. The soul is eternal. We seek truth within ourselves, from other souls, from sacred writings, and from the natural order that sustains us. Number 4, communication between the material and the non-material world. Spirit transcends all dimensions. All souls, flesh and spirit, communicate with each other. Number 5, personal responsibility. Cause produces effect through thoughts, words, and deeds. We create ourselves in our circumstances, and we are singly responsible for our choices and creations. And number 6, the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. It is our highest morality. All right. Well, thank you for reading along with me, and I hope those vibration of those principles restored some healing for you. And of course, I've made my introduction, my grand introduction, and I give over the floor and microphone to Siobhan, who is going to guide us in healing today.
Thank you, Terrence, and thank you for all of you for having me here today. So as I was sitting with sort of the topic to speak to today, the obvious topic would have been the spring equinox, which is happening tomorrow. And I could spend an hour talking about that because it is very interesting to talk about life and death and rebirth and sort of the continuous cycle. And as I was sitting with that, and the topic that I would like to also present from my book, the sort of cyclical nature of our own lives in terms of like the micro sort of cycles of life that we encounter all the time and are like sometimes within a day. And then also when we think about our lives at the macro level and how many of like multiple lifetimes we've lived and will continue to live as we move on. I also thought about how cyclical our spiritual practice is and how our spiritual practice has to evolve. And I did just happen to write a chapter about that in my book and about how I sort of have found myself in this cyclical process within my spiritual practice and how it evolves and how I go through different stages, which I describe in this chapter. And the chapter is called Your Spiritual Practice Does Not Have to Look One Way. Basically giving you permission, or everyone permission, to define what their spiritual practice looks like and how it continues to evolve through different stages and different phases of our lives. The cycles or chapters that I have described within that book chapter is like spiritual boot camp, spiritual overwhelm, spiritual bypassing, spiritual resistance, and then integration. And for me, that sort of is a continuous cycle. And I think all of you can sort of resonate with that. I do also want to say before, as I was thinking about how to structure this, I am going to lead you in a short meditation And then I'm actually going to read this chapter instead of doing a lecture about it. I would rather you just hear directly from what I've written, and then we can do hopefully a 10-minute of discussion, and everyone can share sort of what resonated and what you took away from it. But before I go into the meditation and start reading, I also want to say that, as Terrence already said, the book is called Witch, which stands for Woman in Total Conscious Healing. As I read, and whenever I say woman in total conscious healing, please use whatever descriptor works for you. Replace woman with man, or anything else in terms of how you identify. The message will still apply. So I don't want to make anyone feel excluded here. So I wanted to kind of preface that up front.
I certainly don't.
All right. Okay, so with that, if everyone just wants to settle in for a short meditation and find a comfortable spot. Okay, so as you get comfortable in your seat, plant your feet flat on the floor. Take a deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. Take another deep breath in, and as you breathe out, if you haven't already, close your eyes. And then resume breathing easily and effortlessly. As you continue to focus on your breath, begin to let go of noises around you and shift your attention inward. If you get distracted by sounds in the room, simply notice this without judgment and return your focus back to your breathing. Begin to feel the earth beneath you. Really feel it. Feel its warmth. Feel its energy pulsating against the soles of your feet. Feel its welcoming. Feel its gravitational pull that allows us to walk the earth with each other. Feel the attachment to earth that we accept unconditionally with complete trust and surrender. With each breath, we softly sink into the surface of it, slowly merging and becoming one. Notice roots branching down and out from your body, deep into the earth. You and the earth are now breathing together. The same air, the same rhythm. Now allow your inner light to shine, reaching all the way up to the center of the sun. There is no longer a difference between your light and the light of the sun. Both are shining out onto the world, giving it light. We now bring our attention to the point in our body where these two places meet, your heart. There's a small kindling flame, sacred fire that is always with you and accessible to you. Within this space, we can access and feel all the love we have felt in the past. as we call in our beloved past selves. We feel the love we will feel in the future, as we call in our beloved future selves. And we feel the love we feel right now, as we become aware of our beloved self in this present moment. All these versions of ourselves start to form a circle around this sacred fire within us, holding hands. Together, they begin to walk forward until they step into the flame. The sacred union of our past, present, and future selves, embodying our heart's memories and possibilities, alchemized into who we are in our soul. From the sacred place within our hearts, open yourself up to receive the message of your soul, your higher self. Spend a few moments here feeling your higher self in your heart, and I will bring you back when it is time. Slowly return to your body now by bringing movement into your hands and feet. And know that you can return to this fire anytime you like. Feel the earth beneath you and feel how the earth is supporting your physical body. And whenever you're ready, open your eyes. So if you just want to stay in a receptive mode and relax and listen, I'm just going to start reading. This might take about 30 minutes and then we'll have a discussion afterwards. All right. Your spiritual practice doesn't need to look one way. Spirituality is the practice of learning and unlearning, of healing and growing, of accepting and surrendering. As we are each having our own unique human experience, our spiritual paths and therefore our healing are also unique. We have each already gained wisdom from our many previous lives, and this innate wisdom of our true self is always available to us. We just have to awaken and remember. Just think about all that you have been through already, everything you have experienced, what you have overcome, the people that you have loved and lost over multiple lifetimes. All of this has caused you to evolve and grow at the soul level. We still have so much to learn and heal from, and that is our calling in this lifetime. We choose to come back to Earth School to learn lessons to further advance our souls. But we as women or men in total conscious healing are also here during this exact time in our evolution to share the wisdom and light that is already shining so bright within us. To do so, we must find tools, techniques, practices, and rituals for our daily lives. Our timelines, awakenings, energetic upgrades, and experiences are going to be so very different as we create our unique spiritual practices. That is why we cannot compare our own path with that of others or copy the way someone else lives their life and expect to evolve and learn the lessons we're meant to learn. If our spiritual practices are helping us with our healing transformation, then copying someone's spiritual practice is like copying someone else's healing journey and wondering why it isn't working. Well, because it isn't yours. The practices aren't aligned to your current experience and aren't intuitively integrated. For example, say you're dealing with sexual trauma. The practice that might resonate with you could be a form of inner child therapy or tact therapy, while a spiritual practice that entails sexual expansion, such as tantra or orgasmic meditation, might initially be unhelpful, even triggering. Maybe you will be called to those practices at a later point in your healing journey, maybe not. What works for someone else won't necessarily work for you, and vice versa. You might say that this is obvious, but we are raised in and conditioned by a society that tries really hard to create a one-size-fits-all model for life. We move through the school system from kindergarten to high school, go to college or get a job, find a partner, get married, procreate, work to pay bills, and die. At least that is what a normal and successful life should look like, according to the status quo. Is this really why we're here? I used to think so. I fully subscribe to this model of capitalistic success, of collecting degrees, certifications, titles, and medals. I set priorities around doing and achieving, and I doggedly pursued outward success. Until one day, I finally got to the point where I had to honestly ask myself this question: is this all there is to life? Of course not. I eventually woke up to the fact that there is so much more to life, and to my own being, than that which I was taught and made to believe. I woke up to the fact that I have free will and choice. Not everyone does in the way that my education and income and skin color afford me. Investing time and money to find oneself is most certainly a privilege. Just as we are all unique and have our own journeys, being on a spiritual path is like walking a tightrope. To paraphrase Jesus, it's like being in this world, but not of this world. While we must do what we need to survive in this world, our true selves and our consciousness are not of this world and therefore not bound by it. We can choose to not let conditioning and fear-mongering run our lives. Easier said than done. Give me 1 second. Walking the tightrope is using your inner guidance system to navigate the physical and non-physical realms. You might be contemplating leaving a life behind, a home, a relationship, financial security, to pursue an unknown path. Your inner nagging is so strong. You are walking a tightrope of leaving everything you've built behind for something you cannot yet hold, see, or quantify. You might choose to fight a health issue with a combination of Western and Eastern medicine, as well as holistic healing practices, acknowledging the benefits as well as limitations of science. We have to align our energetic vibrations, which are our mindset, our beliefs, our resources, money, community, and our actions in this physical world with the spiritual guidance we receive. This is walking the tightrope of living in a participatory universe. So now I'm going to walk us through the different stages. Spiritual boot camp. You might be asking yourself right now what a spiritual practice is, if what you're already doing qualifies as one, or where to even start. A spiritual practice is taking regular action to cultivate spiritual development or induce spiritual experiences. Chances are that you already have a few in your repertoire. Most of us grew up performing spiritual practices at home or in a church, synagogue, temple, or mosque. You've likely said at least 1 or 2 prayers in your life. Thank God, or holy shit. You might be subconsciously performing spiritual practices without knowing it, like making your morning coffee a ritual that includes some personal quiet time and reflection. Or maybe you like to take your shoes off and feel the soft grass under your feet. Oh yes, those count as spiritual practices. On the path of becoming women in total conscious healing, there comes a point when we want to know more about the meaning of it all. We just might pick up that book that caught our eye at the neighborhood bookstore, or sign up for that lecture at the meditation center down the street without really knowing what it is that we're looking for. Once we awaken and set foot on our spiritual path, and our reality as we know it starts to crumble, we usually enter into a stage that I like to call spiritual boot camp. Some might have traumatizing experience that causes them to awaken. Others find their way there by listening to their inner nagging or intuition. And still others awaken to their energetic gifts seemingly overnight. No matter how you end up peeking behind the veil, chances are that you won't ever be able to see the world as you did before. Slowly but surely, we follow the white rabbit. We dabble, get overly excited, consume everything we can. We go on a quest to understand more and to become immersed in all things spiritual. There's a longing to spend more time on the other side of the veil because at your core, it just feels so right. For me, this started during my Saturn return. Isolated and depressed, I initially tried to run away from my feelings, trying to fix them by staying busy, overworking, and looking for solutions outside of myself. Eventually, my intuition got loud enough that I realized I needed to look within. But where to start? I wanted to read every book, attend every course or retreat, and follow every teacher. Over the course of the following 2 or 3 years, I dove into my spiritual boot camp. I attended lectures at the Spiritualist Church of New York City, taking classes on intuitive awareness, psychic development, and Reiki. I got book recommendations and read about the soul's journey and purpose, the laws of the universe, energetic and psychic powers, and how to manifest. I went on retreats. I took meditation, yoga, and breathwork classes. I sat in the audience when the likes of Marianne Williamson and Gabby Bernstein took the stage in New York City. I soaked up everything I could, and I was hungry for more. It was invigorating and eye-opening, but the more I learned, the more I also felt cheated. How had I not known all this before? Why weren't more people talking about it? Why weren't we taught any of this in school? And then my ego started piping in. Why does everyone else seem to know so much more than me? How am I ever going to catch up? How do I know which is the right teaching or tool? What is the solution to my problem, the perfect answer to my questions? And with that, I had officially entered the phase of spiritual overwhelm. Spiritual overwhelm. Still very much hostage to my conditioning, my inner people-pleasing perfectionist wanted to study hard and get all A's. I wanted to practice, like the athlete I am, to improve my psychic gifts. There were no trophies or medals to be won, but I was still determined to win them. Don't get me wrong, developing a spiritual practice does require dedication, consistency, and a willingness to learn. Focusing on the outcome, however, is futile. For me, realizing that the test is actually a lifelong series of experiences and lessons that we practice and learn without always having a concrete goal was overwhelming. How was I supposed to know when I'd made it if there was no grade or degree or medal to tell me? The sense of overwhelm increased when I tried to follow every spiritual teacher and influencer who crossed my path, at times even putting certain teachers on a pedestal. They were so radiant, so perfect, so much more evolved than the rest of us. Far, far more evolved than I was. There were so many coaches and gurus out there promising certain outcomes, and I was sure that all I had to do was follow as many teachings as possible to a T. Then doubt and decision paralysis kept in. What if in this maze of spiritual paths, I didn't follow the right one? This is, of course, a trap, which I have fallen into more than once. I signed up for a program because I felt like I should, because I felt inadequate and insecure, or because I was trying to control an outcome or timing. I clicked the bait before taking a moment to get back into alignment or recognize my fear-based thinking. In those instances, when I chose from fear or desperation, I usually didn't get what I was hoping for, or I wasn't actually ready to do the internal work that was required of me. Because let's face it, there is no golden ticket or magic program. You still need to do the work. How many times have you bought a program because you thought you should or that you desperately needed it? How many of those courses did you buy because the marketing spoke directly to your fears and desperation? How many of those programs or courses did you actually finish? There have been times, though, when I've been lucky and I believe guided to a program, lecture, or teacher that exposed me to something I didn't even know I needed. Those have always been the most beneficial experiences for me because the teachings or tools usually aligned with exactly where I was in my spiritual development. Again, don't get me wrong, I'm a huge believer in the value of learning ancient practices and traditions, as well as learning from the experience of others. I think it is powerful to work with coaches who can help us notice our blind spots or hold space for our healing. It is even more powerful to sit in a circle with plugged-in individuals, share a sacred space, and be witness in our evolution. The only way to know if a practice or teacher or community is right for you is to try it. Don't think of it as a waste of time. There is no scarcity of time, and every new experience is worthwhile. The scenic route might take longer, but think of the view. Anyway, there's no rush and no arrival, so why take the expressway? Everything we are taught has been taught before. Ancient wisdom resonates with its audience when it's packaged in the life experience and vibration of the channel or teacher who is relaying it. Some of you will identify with my experiences and find value in this book, for example, and some of you might think that what I'm sharing is a whole lot of crap. That is okay and actually expected. No teaching, method, or ceremony is more valuable than our own internal knowing. No teacher, guru, coach, parent, shaman, or pastor knows you better than you know yourself. Any healer and teacher worth their salt will teach you exactly how powerful you already are and how to access that power for yourself. When we feel ourselves becoming overwhelmed, the single most important thing to do is listen within. What is your body telling you? What is your guidance telling you? What is important on our spiritual path is to get to a point where we can sift through the vast amount of information that is available to us and choose that which feels right in our heart and gut, right for where we are in our life curriculum. Teachers, books, and courses will often synchronously find us when the time is right. We don't have to force it. One size does not fit all. And a resounding yes feels expansive, exciting, and just right. Spiritual bypassing. In the early 1980s, Buddhist teacher and psychotherapist John Wellwood introduced the term spiritual bypassing and defined it as a tendency to use spiritual ideas and practices to sidestep or avoid facing unresolved emotional issues, psychological wounds, and unfinished developmental tasks. Using spiritual practice as a defense mechanism or a tool for avoidance might make us feel better in the short term. And sometimes we truly do need to pause and collect ourselves before facing conflict or wounding. Sometimes we need to manage the symptoms of post-traumatic stress before we can deal with the causes. But if all we do is de-escalate and self-soothe, then we cannot grow. If we only gloss over issues, reduce immediate stress, pacify our egos, or avoid triggers, then we will stay stuck. Mindfulness principles that simply focus on accessing presence through awareness and stillness can be a way to perpetuate avoidance and detachment. Presence is great as long as it is not used to avoid the shadow elements of the human experience, make one feel superior, or avoid taking action because it is what it is. Recognizing spiritual bypassing can be difficult because it can be quite subtle. Chances are that you have done it. I know I have. It can be meditating instead of communicating, praying instead of taking direct action. It can take the form of telling someone that everything happens for a reason, or that they're being overly negative when they are expressing pain. Often, this kind of reaction is a helpful red flag that reveals the dismissive person's discomfort with difficult emotions. Toxic positivity, the belief that we should put a positive spin on tragic events, and incessant optimism don't leave room for working through negative emotions. And ignoring negative emotions can lead to worse problems in the long term. This looks like asserting, it could be worse, instead of validating emotional experience or telling someone that failure is not an option. Instead of, it could be worse, try saying, that really sucks. I'm sorry you're going through this. Is there anything I can do for you? Emotions are neither positive nor negative. They just are. Being spiritual means honoring our shadow self and answering the call of pain, anger, sadness, rage, shame, guilt, and grief when it shows itself like a serpent emerging from its hiding place. This is the good, deep, and messy part of us, the raw and real. We didn't incarnate to Earth to be perfect and palatable. We came to experience life, to grow, to fail, and to make mistakes, to let go, to heal trauma, and to have our hearts cracked wide open. We came to feel deeply and to forge authentic relationships. For example, anger is a perfectly fine emotion in certain situations. It is totally acceptable to be angry at the person who hurt you, to be furious at the way our reproductive rights are being curtailed, to be mad when our male colleague is getting paid more than you, to be upset when your partner doesn't follow through on an important obligation. Spiritual bypassing can stifle relationships if we avoid dealing with difficult emotions and the behaviors that cause the problematic situation in the first place. Authentic spirituality fosters authentic expression of all emotions, even if they are uncomfortable. In order to grow as human and spiritual beings and to be fully present, we need to welcome all parts of ourselves. Real presence isn't mind-centric, but heart-centric. And heart-centric healing requires us to witness our emotions and then transform them through expression and release. Regardless of who or what might have sparked our anger or grief, it is our personal responsibility to find practices that allow us to grow through deep embodied feelings and to learn healthy ways to respond. Spiritual resistance. Sometimes we get tired of doing the work. Of course, the spiritual path is joyous, beautiful, expansive, and enlightening, but to truly go deep requires courage and persistence. There is always another layer to uncover, and at times we get pushed to the edge of our endurance. The first time I encountered this was about 3 years into my spiritual journey. Within a 9-month time span, I had traveled to Germany to take care of my mother during her cancer treatment and had gone through a breakup. I was emotionally drained and needed time away to disconnect and find myself again. So I decided on a whim to join friends on a trip to Bali. I also booked a 3-day silent retreat before I'd be joining the other girls for some adventure. The silent retreat was in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by rice paddies. My accommodation was a concrete hut, a simple bed with a mosquito net, and a shower with a toilet in it. I had no access to my phone or the internet, no caffeine or sugar, and nobody to talk to. We could participate in daily meditation and yoga at 6 a.m. and 2 p.m. Otherwise, we were left alone with our thoughts. I brought a coloring book and Michael Newton's Journey of Souls, which I'd read a few years prior. I slept and read for a good portion of the first 24 hours. The more I read about the journey of souls and grasped the concept that we were never done learning and evolving at the soul level, the more defeated I felt. I was already so tired that the thought of continuous lessons and healing work just felt insurmountable. It was a full body tiredness, like I had cement in my veins instead of blood. I laid the book down, rolled over onto my back, and decided to just be alone with my thoughts. Once I stopped and simply surrendered, I started to purge, a whole body release of emotions, but also physically purging. Everything that I had pushed down in order to emotionally function that year came back up. I spent 2 full days alone in that concrete hut, unable to eat or participate in the meditation or yoga sessions. What I thought would be a relaxing spiritual time to rest and reset was quite the opposite. My body was saying in no uncertain terms, nope, we've reached maximum capacity, we're done. There will be no more learning today. Nobody can do the deep work all the time. Sometimes the best thing you can do is stop what you're doing and wait it out. Give yourself time to integrate. You can always pick back up where you left off when the time is right. Integration. There is no graduation from spiritual boot camp, and it's likely you'll experience spiritual overwhelm or FOMO and spiritual exhaustion more than once. With consistent practice, however, we develop and strengthen our intuitive muscles, and we learn to trust that we know what it is that we need. Discernment can only truly come with experience. From the more general, broad stroke teachings, we move into spiritual practices that are more aligned with our current earthly assignment. We will continue to be guided to experiences, teachers, books, and relationships that get into those deeper unknown layers of ourselves. For me, at one time, this took the form of dancing to EDM to the point of falling into a trance-like state. At other times, I craved quiet meditation with a silent mantra or deep visualization exercises. Sometimes I journal and practice automatic writing every day. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I work with my tools of divination, such as crystals, pendulums, and oracle cards. Sometimes I don't. We will continue to uncover more of our hidden parts, our deep-seated wounds, secrets, desires, and gifts. We continually embark on a deeper level of healing and expansion if we choose to heed the call to become women in total conscious healing. In this phase, we also start to remember, to awaken the cellular memory that already holds the wisdom of our higher self that we've accumulated throughout lifetimes. This might manifest itself in an affinity for certain ancient practices and ceremonies that feel comfortable or natural to you, as if you have done them before. Chances are that you have. You might recognize certain cultures or places as sacred and holy, as if you have been there before. The longer you are on your spiritual path, the more will be uncovered and revealed to you. Stay curious and willing to adapt. Your spiritual evolution depends on it. The phases of developing your spiritual practices are part of a non-linear cyclical process of awakening, overwhelm, integration, stagnation, resistance, and reawakening. It is continuous and ever evolving. During each of those phases, your spiritual practice will look different. And the more you allow yourself to follow the white rabbit into new depths of yourself and the collective consciousness, the more personal and integrated your practices will become. There is no perfection in spiritual practice. The most important aspect of any spiritual practice is that it is in alignment with your own healing and feels integrated and embodied, allowing you to find balance between staying consistent and staying curious so that your practice evolves naturally. Getting to this level of trust and knowing within yourself takes time and practice. We call it spiritual practice for a reason. As a woman in total conscious healing, you will learn to trust your intuition, your body, and your spirit team to guide you. You will find which environments, teachers, practices, songs, or types of touch help you access the divine. It can even be as simple as asking yourself, what makes me feel good, alive, joyous, or turned on? My hope is that you feel empowered to explore and figure out what resonates with you and how certain practices make you feel. Because feeling all the feelings authentically is what creates connection to the divine. Your spiritual practice is personal and ever evolving. It can be all things because you are all things. That is it.
Thank you, Siobhan.
You're welcome. I would love to hear any sort of thoughts, anything that resonated in terms of your own spiritual practice, how it's developed. Do you resonate with any of the different phases that I've described? Or any questions you may have for me.
Well, I most definitely want to say that I resonated with a great deal of it, and but it's always something I even for myself forget that the outcome is futile. I get in my head a lot of the times, an Aries, so I tend to have that cycle of just things and thoughts in my head, and I often get overwhelmed by all that has to be done, and the outcome of things, and me as a kid too, my frustration really stemmed for me not being at the outcome. Like I was like, why do we have to do the practice? Why can't I just be good at it? And but that's not the point of it. We have to have that progress, that evolution, that growth, and that where that should be our focus, not necessarily the outcome. Which and how you hit it home and structured it resonated very deeply for me. And also that internal knowing being a big aspect of what drives our own personal spiritual practices, being the main thing, not necessarily what we see from and experience from an external source, but an internal source. And that was wonderful to hear, and the thoughts expanded upon that, and honoring your shadow, our shadow self, which is not always pleasant, but it's honoring. We have to honor all aspects of ourselves for that growth.
Mhm.
So there was a lot of great points out of it, and like and one phrase that at least one line that really stood out for me is the authentic spirituality fosters authentic expression of all emotions, even if they are uncomfortable. And that really hit home for me. So, and so I just, really, what a wonderful chapter of also a quite a, I would say this is how many pages we got? 175 pages. So that's just one excerpt. And I'm really excited to read the rest of it. And of course, the exercise, there's some exercises and bullet points of reflection that you have here too listed. Yeah. But yeah, that's those were some of the points that I really that stood out for me and resonated for me, and gave me a bit more peace too, because I in my normal day to day, sometimes I don't necessarily think about the progress. I think about the outcome.
Exactly.
And
we don't always see like what we've already accomplished until we look back, right, in the rearview mirror, and we are like, okay, like look at all this progress. But yeah.
What there may not be just one single thought or feeling, but what inspired you to tackle this, Siobhan, if I may ask?
Like to write the book in general?
Yeah.
Like my own healing journey,
Mm-hmm.
because I had been on this, I think when I started writing this book 3 years ago, had been on my journey for 7-8 years at the time. And I was also guided, I think, by spirit. I mean, I had this nagging feeling and this inspiration that I wanted to write. So I started writing in my journal, then I wrote blog posts. And as I was writing blog posts, I really understood or like felt how putting my thoughts and feelings onto paper really helped me understand myself better and also help others. So kind of just like taking everything that I've experienced and learned and through my own spiritual awakening and putting it on paper was really sort of another healing practice for me, basically. And then I decided to, I started therapy, internal family systems therapy. So I was going inward even more and getting to know different parts of myself and sort of my traumas and what happened in my childhood that made me take on limiting beliefs and all of that. So then all my spiritual practice, I was looking at it from a different lens and a different view then after that. And so I started writing about that. And that kind of I would say the 2 years that almost 3 years, I was writing the book. I was processing and healing. And the reflection or having to write about my own experiences and then sitting with the feelings of like, okay, what did I learn? What did it make me feel? And what do I want to convey to others was a whole other level of healing and processing and growing for me. So part of my own healing journey, I was guided to do it, and hope it helps others too.
Well, just reading the chapter along with you and having a physical copy and just being able to kind of skim through. The structure too is really well done. I like things that are well structured, the organization of them. But it's just, I find that you have those, just that step of like, oh, we're also progressing with each stage. And I like how I really enjoy how it's organized, so that it is it digests into our minds the most. Yeah, so I really enjoy how it's structured as well.
Thank
to
you.
talk on a physical sense of the book. But yeah, really a lovely excerpt. If there's anybody else that has questions or comments, maybe some thoughts, even doesn't have to be. Janet, who read the book probably in one sitting, you're on mute.
Margot looks like has a comment too. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know
Okay.
if Janet was
Yeah,
talking. Yeah.
there you go.
Go ahead.
Oh,
Yeah, go ahead, Janet. Or
Okay.
Margot.
Well,
Yeah,
I
or
just
whoever.
I loved the book.
Mhm.
And I'm sure that it's going to be very helpful to a lot of people
Mhm.
in my own spiritual counseling. So I'm glad to, I can hear myself saying, listen, you need Siobhan's book, chapter 11, or whatever, whatever the chapter
Mhm.
is that I think will resonate with them mostly. And I'm going to find it very useful that way. It's very beautifully organized, and frankly, I am in awe at your willingness to come naked before us, right down to the soul level. It's
Mhm.
took a lot of courage.
Mhm.
And
Still
welcome
feels
to the
scary.
club, dear. Yeah, I know it is. I know it is. But isn't it so worth it? It is just so worth it. Yeah. So
Mhm.
congratulations, my dear.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yeah, the book itself is just an example of that integration of everything, too, of that journey, and the good and the bad,
Yeah.
and the practice of it.
And it's, for me, this is a practice in finally like not abandoning myself,
Mhm.
because there's a lot of reasons to like not share my truth, not share a lot of my thoughts and feelings, my traumas, knowing that it wouldn't be received well by everyone. So, but it was, again, I was guided to say, okay, you stop abandoning yourself, stop playing small, stop hiding your voice, and just, I had to, like, there's no way for me not to do it.
Mhm.
And I think this is part of my journey, and like I have to face and sit with the uncomfortable feelings of it and the vulnerability, and it took a lot of courage, but that's just part of the growth. So.
Margot, you had a question or comment?
Well, yeah, I was just going to say it was a very inspiring chapter. I find myself sometimes lately in a transition without a lot of discipline in my spiritual practice. But I've been doing meditation and other things for so long that I decided to be gentle and not judgmental of myself, and realized that a lot of my practices are embedded in my daily routine. Like you said, the coffee and the moment of being quiet with yourself, or recognizing nature's look that morning and connecting with elements in nature in my meditative mind. It might be an eyes open meditation because I'm appreciating the day ahead of me or something. So it gave me sort of a good feeling to hear you validate that even though I'm not that disciplined at the moment, I am doing the practices. They're embedded and flowing through my day.
That's awesome. And like, yes, sometimes I'm very disciplined and I have a structured maybe 40 days of a devotional practice at my altar every morning. And sometimes I just don't, because it's just not what calls to me. And I think that's giving ourselves permission to listen to what we need, and knowing that there's no we're not losing anything, or we're not less spiritual because we're not sitting at our altar every day, right? So it's like there's
Right.
other ways to incorporate spirituality into your life.
Which is like you're deciding on your own. You're not really caring what other consensus reality ideas tell you about how to be spiritual. So, you know, I
Correct.
appreciate that a lot. I also appreciate the family therapy or family systems therapy, because I do that kind of work and it does help a lot
Mhm.
to make
Yeah,
parts come together and be whole.
exactly.
Mm. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing.
Mhm.
Anyone else with thoughts or comments or questions? Oh, we got Leslie here.
I just want to say congratulations, number one, Siobhan.
Thank you.
And I agree with what Margot just said and some of the things Janet said. I haven't read the book yet, but my copy arrives tomorrow.
Woo-hoo.
And
Love it.
because I ordered it while you were talking, Terrence. I was listening.
Well, you probably had
Wow.
ample opportunity to buy many books in the length of
I
my
know,
talking or
But
rambling.
I agreed with what Margot was saying about, I mean, what interested me, two of the points that interested me were that you don't have to do everything every day or feel that there are days that you do and there are days that you don't do this particular practice or that one. And also it was interesting to hear you say that things are that it's cyclical and all through the cycle repeats. I had not expected that since I'm still consider myself a newbie. So, thank you.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
And also addressing the status quo too of what society really places on us, and that's quite it tends to drown out a lot of the individuality that we seek and we want to nourish, and that that acceptance too of what generally says, oh no, that's not right, but really, we should be able to be within and experience ourselves fully.
And also just like pick and choose. Like, I mean, I've attended so many courses and I like read so much and there's so many different teachings. Like pick and choose what feels right and like what sticks and use that and like, and like give yourself permission to do what feels right for you versus like having to follow everything to a T. That's like so structured and so very masculine too, right? To like follow something that is laid out, but especially as women too, and men too, bringing in more of that like feminine from an energetic, not like gender feminine energy of allowing like flow and sort of like the river, right? When we think about like water and like a river flowing, the feminine is the water that sort of like can flow past obstacles, and the masculine is the structure, right? The actual riverbed and the rocks and they have to exist together. So having that structure, that discipline, some like teachings, but then allowing yourself to flow within that, I think is what's really important.
Yeah, I agree. Most definitely agree that the flowing, and it's like you need to integrate both aspects, because we all have the element of that energy of both feminine and masculine within ourselves, and then it's just really a blend that in how we want to express either. And
yes, and I just want to say that I'm agreeing with you, Terrence, and certainly Siobhan, but I want to congratulate you on the very clear way you've expressed it.
yes,
Because that's what's going to make it so helpful to so many people. So clearly brought out.
Yeah.
Very, very clearly. Yes.
And I think
the pain associated with it, but you don't run away from.
Yes, you can't. But I also want to say that like it's so important to learn how to do certain things and to sort of the teachings of it and having the know-how. But if we follow like a recipe from like step 1 through 10, there's no space to allow your own intuition and your own guidance and to come through, because you're just sort of like following something without like expressing, or it's kind of like going within. So I think that's another aspect to it. It's like, learn the technique of a particular meditation or visualization or embodiment practice or whatever it is, but then like bring your own essence to it. Like, don't just follow it to a T.
Yeah. Well done. Very well done.
Yes, and excellently, like incredibly well written as well.
Yes.
So
And
yeah,
Terrence, I
yes.
do hope you're gonna give that Mother's Day gift early, so she doesn't have to wait
Yes.
until
Oh,
Siobhan's
yeah.
born.
Plan
Send it to her
Well,
right away.
Well, I already talked to Siobhan about this. I have to have it autographed first, then
Ah.
send it to my
Yes,
mother.
for
So
that, yes.
yeah, my
But
mother
I
has
have
to
a
have.
question.
Mhm.
Mhm.
When you started your spiritual journey, was there one practice that you embraced and you continued to develop from your start to now that you is your go-to?
Yeah, I think meditation has been the foundation. I think that's where I started. And then I think the second aspect was breathing exercises. I might have done it in combination with like meditation, and that's definitely evolved into more breath work and embodiment. So it's now like that sort of like the seated meditation and the mindfulness and presence. I do that sometimes, but it's more evolved for me into like breath work and embodiment practices, which is more involving the body, right? Bringing our emotions through the body and expressing and releasing trauma or stuck energy through the body. So it's that part has definitely evolved into something I didn't even know what embodiment was until 2 years ago, right? So again, I was exposed to something that I didn't know I needed, and now I can't live without it. So
Thank you.
Yeah.
Was there any other questions for Siobhan?
I have a question.
Of course, Rosanna. Nice to see you.
Good to see you too, guys. Hello, Siobhan.
hi.
I was wondering, you mentioned that you went on that silent retreat. I was wondering why you thought you wanted to do that. Have you done more silent retreats afterwards? And if you can share what, in your opinion and your experience, who would be a good candidate to try it and why they should try it? Like, help us understand what you've learned and what have you gotten out of them? And because, since we are talking about following your authentic path, I personally feel like I want to do it, but I don't know anyone that has. So I was just wondering your thoughts,
Yeah.
and if you could share any information.
So for me, I've always I've learned again through experience that going on solo travel, like traveling by myself and removing myself from my day-to-day surroundings and my to-do list and my work and everything, but also like traveling somewhere by myself where I'm not surrounded with people that I know, because then again, you're sort of like in this, you're just like taking your life with you. Like I've learned to just like, if I take myself out of and everything I know and pump myself somewhere in the world, completely unfamiliar to myself, is the best way for me to find back to myself, because there's no distractions. If everything is new, I have to trust myself and my own knowing that I'm going to be able to navigate like the travel, like whatever, if there's like a language barrier, whatever it is, I have to trust myself that I can figure it out, and I have no one else to rely on. So it is like the fastest way for me to get back to like trusting myself and having, just bringing all my senses back to myself. So that year prior, as I said, was really tough, being with my mom who was going through cancer treatment and a breakup and everything else. And I just given too much of myself without doing any self-care, right? It's again, falling into those patterns of like selfless martyr and like people pleasing. And at that point in my journey, I didn't really understand the importance of self-care and setting boundaries, which I've like described in the book too, which I like got to at a later stage in my life. But I just knew I needed to get back to myself because I'd lost my way, and I was like processing a lot of tough emotions. So I just took myself somewhere completely, again, took myself somewhere where, and also into an experience that I'd never done before. I hadn't gone to a silent retreat before, but it was a great place just to not be distracted by phones or talking and anything else, and just sit with myself. What happened was not what I expected. I thought I would be like really rejuvenated and like feel great about myself. But even just like giving myself space, I just purged for 3 days straight. Like physically, emotionally, everything. It kind of felt like a death in a way, and then like a rebirth. So would I recommend it? Yes, I would. I haven't done it again, but I would like to. I've done a lot of other types of retreats since then, but I haven't gone to a silent retreat. But I crave it sometimes, and I crave that like being alone and being in silence. I think it is really, really important because everything slows down. Your thoughts slow down. That we're bombarded with so much information all the time. Like removing all of that, just like it clears your channel. It makes it, you have access to your own intuition, your own voice in a way that I think it's harder to get to that level when you're in your day-to-day, for me anyway. And also, if you're a writer or you like writing, like I did a lot of journaling while I was there because there's nothing else to do. I wasn't speaking to anybody. I wasn't, so you're just like, I was writing out my thoughts and my feelings. So I think it's very helpful to clear your channel and find back to yourself. I don't know if that answered all your questions.
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Is there any other, we have time for maybe one more comment or question? Anyone else? Okay. Well, thank you, Siobhan, for reading a chapter of your book, your wonderful book. And yeah, and I put in the link your website for everybody to not only see your other services and what's going on with you, but also there are, of course, all the links there for you to purchase Siobhan's book if you're interested through her website. So she has all the links listed there for you to enjoy. And of course, I sent the link to our YouTube channel of The Open Doorway. If you wanted to just view this particular healing service, once again, it will be posted up there very soon, probably in the next week or two. But there's also the past healing services all up there since the very beginning, first one online that we had, which happened to be with guest minister Siobhan Byrne. Siobhan. So you can see how it began and how it has unfolded to now. And so yeah, it was I forgot how that all unfolded because it was so long. It feels like so long ago, but
pandemic,
yes,
right?
Yeah. But yes, thank you, Siobhan, for that immense healing words and vibrations that you extended to us. And yeah, I can't wait to really sink my teeth into the rest of the book.
Awesome. Thank you all.
There's a few other things that I just wanted to share to the screen before Siobhan closes us out for service. Some events coming up. All right. So we have our monthly online message service coming up on April 5th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. If you're signed up to our newsletter and our emails, you will get the Zoom link to this service. This is a free message service. We had, I think, close to 40 people the last time, or was it 30? So it's between 30 and 40 people. So they're quite a big crowd nowadays, but we do have multiple mediums that are giving messages to whoever they're drawn towards. it's a lot of just fun and a wonderful energy being together, and the messages being given. And I also feel like, as I say in all my message circle, that a message to one person may also resonate to you. So there's no accident to you, all of us being here together today, just like there will be no accident to whoever can make the April 5th service. There may be even a message, even if though it's not directed to you, it may resonate with you. Of course, if you miss the April 5th message service, or you don't get a message, we do have on April 12th at 7 p.m., we have our monthly message circle. This is a paid event. And if you wanted to sign up for that, you can just email your name to info@opendoorwaybrooklyn.com, and I will respond as quickly as possible with the information to send the reservation fee. And we are being joined with our co-conductor, Christy. It's been some time since she's joined us. She is on the board of trustees for the Spiritual Church of New York City, and a very wonderful psychic medium and good friend of the Open Doorway. If you're coming to the meet and greet on Monday, you can even meet her then. And of course, myself, Janet, and some other people who are going to be attending this another event that's going on in person. And I can, if anyone is unfamiliar with that event tomorrow, I can let you know the details. We also have a healing service on April 16th. If you wanted to get some more healing. And I also wanted to just bring some attention to a charity, a nonprofit organization that I recently have been asked to feature them on a regular basis, not only at services, but also on our newsletter. I follow them on Instagram, and it's two lovely women, Megan and Barbara, and they started this organization called Puppy Kitty New York City, and essentially they go around and they save strays, injured animals, and they give care and medical help to those animals in need, and as well as homes. So if you care to support this great organization, they're located in Middle Village, Queens, but they go to all boroughs on Long Island, to Queens, Brooklyn, and these are the various ways that you can donate. But we will most definitely have this information on a regular basis on our newsletter, so that we can help our animal friends in need. And yeah, Megan was very excited to have me reach out and ask for their permission to be featured on a regular basis with the Open Doorway, and we're happy to help them with whatever needs they have. Funding is the greatest need, but they're always also welcoming food, animal food, as in addition to any funds. They do, if you go to their website, which I will also put into the chat, they have a link to their Etsy. They have merchandise that you can also buy to support, and that, of course, proceeds go to Puppy Kitty New York City, Inc. All right, thank you for listening to that, and we'll close service.
All right. Everyone just wants to close their eyes really quick. Thank you to our human selves for showing up today and every day with all of our parts to walk this earthly path. Thank you to Mother Earth for nourishing us as we walk this path. And thank you to the divine for guiding us on our unique path and guiding us to the ancient wisdom, tools, and practices to support our journey home to ourselves. And so it is.
Amen.
Amen.
It was lovely.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Siobhan, once again. And
Yeah,
of course, I
Thanks
sent
for having me.
all the various links in the chat. Yeah, it's always a pleasure having you, Siobhan, and we'll most definitely get you back again.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'll happily join.
Yeah.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you, everybody in the chat.
Thank you.
who's staying.
Sure.
Geraldine, thank you for joining us. It's been a pleasure. This is wonderful. I hope you can, to those, everybody, I hope you can soak in some sun before it goes down on this lovely Sunday. Bye, Amanda. Keela, is that how you pronounce your name? Keela or Kayla?
Fiala.
Keala. Okay, nice to meet you. Or have we met before?
I've
Oh.
been on before, but
Oh, okay.
haven't
It's been
talked.
some time though, right?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Well, welcome back.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you so much.
Of course, my pleasure. Or what a lovely kitty photo.
Gorgeous, isn't she?
Yeah, is that your furry friend?
Yeah,
that
I've
your-
got two. Yeah.
Okay. Oh,
They're my
lovely.
best pals.
Janet has two that are also her best pals too.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Toodaloo.
Toodaloo, toodle pip. Bye.
As my father
Bye.
says, to the next turn.
Great.
Thank you,
Karen.
Of course. Thank you. Is that you, Mary?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Thank you for joining.
Of course. Of course. Have a blessed evening.
You too.